Patrick Lamb, and my guest today is visionary entrepreneur who has created FashionNXT, a fashion brand enhancement platform to experience what's next in fashion. FashionNXT has become recognized recently as a competitive on every level with the top New York fashion shows and has become a model platform for growth of the fashion industry, premiering fashion brands, incubation of fashion, wearable technology designers, and enhancing the overall business ecosystem throughout the U.S. and international industry relationships. His name is Tito Chowdhury, and he has worked with international designers and labels that premiere their collections on the runway, activating experiential marketing campaigns for some of the biggest fashion and technology brands in the world. His work has been prominently featured in Time Magazine, Wall Street Journal, CBS News, the Huffington Post, Marie Claire, book Moda-Italy, and many other leading international publications. Tito's leadership in the fashion industry has been recognized with the Portland Mayor's Spirit of Portland Award. Tito, welcome to Off the Record.
Thank you for inviting me here with you, the Patrick Lamb.
Yeah, thank you very much. We go way back. We're both involved in entrepreneurship and technology, and I know a lot of our listeners want to know more about you, specifically where you come from and how you got involved in this whole fashion industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, that's one of the most common questions I hear out of intrigue from people. So more immediately in fashion, I got involved in it from art and culture, and before that, technology. So I'll studied the technology. Obviously, my background was in computer engineering and successfully worked in one of the biggest technology companies in the world in a very hardcore, super technological field.
And what did you do in that specific realm in regards to the computers? Did it have to do with like programming or server technology, or what kind of field did you work in?
It is even deeper than that. It is I worked for Intel, and I designed computer chips, microprocessor, all the most leading microprocessors that you see that goes into the laptop and desktop and all that kind of things. Those were part of my job. And but when I was working in my technology field, I was involved in the community. I was helping different art and culture organizations as a board member or organizing committee member for fundraising or in other ways to help them.
Benefits and foundations and this kind of work that we see in the community?
Correct. Okay. I was helping Portland State University's Multicultural Center, World Dance Office to bring in music and dance from all over the world to Portland.
So you loved it. You were connected at that point just from your heart, I assume.
Correct, because it was simply because I wanted to be in the community, in the creative field, because that's where I always have loved. That's what I always...
This was your dream, and you were working in the office, and you're like, but what I really want to do is...
Well, not from that point of view, but in a way that like when you are doing your work, but you are also involved in the community to support the art and culture and other parts, different things of the organizations. But art and culture were, and creating beautiful things, creating beautiful experience for the community, connecting art with the patrons, developing patrons, because a lot of times creatives, they're so busy with their own creating art. It is not easy for them to then create this ecosystem that is required for that art to be taken to the patrons, because that's where they make living.
And you and I share a lot of that because I'm involved in music, and there's a lot of parallels in talking about, especially with the changing media formats and how you get what we do, whether it's a music and a new song to the public, and there's a lot of great similarities there.
So that actually comes from the inner sensibility of liking innovation, liking in general, like what is missing, what need to be solved, and how to get into that in a more effective and result-oriented way, that's when you're working in a like one of the top companies in the world that like programs you in that way, so from culture that I was involved in art. I mean, I got invited to be a board member at the Portland Art Museum Young Patrons. So there I saw the importance of an entity, a collective entity, to support the individual artists. That's what I was telling earlier. Like when you are, as an artist, so busy in creating art, it is not always easy for you to take your art to such a huge amount of patrons, because show alone is not, or it's not enough, because you have to develop the patrons. And entities like Art Museum, they develop patrons when they're very little, because they know that like they are when you are programming them for so early, they are more likely to become art patrons in the future. So, but when you are trying to run a entity like that, an organization like that, it requires so much more than just wanting to do it. You're like, it is about business. It is about running PR. It is about running like fundraising effort. It is about running relationships. All of those kind of things that I was learning from the like big companies like Intel I mentioned, and also the creative side of this, like how a creative entities work from entities like Art Museum. That's when I saw what is missing in the fashion industry.
So you learned that it takes a village, and you're like, I need to construct my own little village.
And execution.
And execution. Because, I had a great conversation with a friend of mine who wrote the Ghostbusters theme, and he's made millions of dollars from that. But I was sitting down with him, and he was looking over my stuff, and he was like, Patrick, you have to make great stuff, but then you got to sell great stuff.
Absolutely, because we, as you heard the word, artist merchant, because quite often, unless you are Walt Disney or sometimes Kanye West, both of the artist is not the merchant. But without being the merchant side of it, art oftentimes get limited in its effectiveness to inspire a lot of people, to reach a lot of people. And that also just some of those things, a lot of times artists have this love-hate relationship with business side of it, or finance side of it, or this disciplined approach to in organizations. They are antithesis of that, but somebody has to do it. So that's
if you want to succeed.
If you want to
somebody
succeed,
has to do it.
And we kind of like created this entity so that artists can only deal with us when they need us, but they can be themselves somewhere else, so that they don't have to develop that kind of their skill or programming within their organization. They just like hire us. Hey, I need this kind of things, this kind of services. Let's do something. Or our development programs, where we do, and we'll talk more about that in more further details, where we are helping develop the ecosystem from patron development to talent development across the board of the experiential industry.
I'm always curious about the point at which you realized that your vision for FashionNXT, because I can relate to that feeling. When was the point? Was there a certain event or a point or a day or a week or a year when you were like, I'm starting to successfully make this transition, and I can see my vision coming to fruition?
After I was doing the art and culture organizations and helping them, I started with a couple of other people, fashion engagements, as I was talking about earlier, the collective entities and all those kind of things that I was looking at. But right then, I was still working in the technology industry at that time. So I was always wanting to do something way bigger than what people think Portland deserves. Small, weird, quirky thing. But for me, it was about being consequential. Seeing a problem, what designers need. I was seeing that, okay, amazing independent designers. But because of that lack of infrastructure, lack of that big support, they are stuck in their like community engagement events or client engagement events, in the sidewalk shows or in a bar, or just like without really experience that attracts a bigger audience that they require for themselves.
Well, taking us back a little bit to how you and I met, I think one of the ways we met is one of the companies that I started, Ticket Tomato, which does ticketing for you currently. I remember I basically stalked you for about 4 years trying to set up meetings to do it. So, but one of the things that you have as a challenge when you have a small company, and I can relate to that, is you're battling for market space amidst companies that can afford like large VR or AI formats that cost millions of dollars. So with ticketing, our the competition for us was Ticketmaster, who can afford to spend $20 million on a seating chart that integrates with Facebook and that What are the challenges? Are those challenges similar for the fashion industry and for people that are creating new fashion lines and are trying to get their products out there?
Challenges of scale has always been a challenge for the independent designers or independent artists, and the challenge is very similar, and that's why the solutions themselves are there are a lot of similarity in it. For example, as you mentioned about what are the different ways people are experiencing, whether you were talking about VR and all this kind of stuff, right?
I mean, because I see people all the time. Now you can, with these big companies, you can go online and you can like try it on, and you can put like pick a human that looks like you, and you can put hair on it, and put on the fashion and see how it looks before you buy it at the right size. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, and all of those kind of things, those kind of companies come to us to reach the bigger audience. Say when those kind of innovations are not always happening in a big company. There are a lot of times some small company are creating that VR experience or whatever the technology ways to create connection between the designers and the audience. So they come to us to reach the bigger audience because our annual FashionNXT week that we do every October is that platform where independent designers or fashion designers showing on the runway, but also independent technology companies. They are coming to us to reach that audience. So what in that process, a lot of times an independent designer is learning about this technology and having that connection also. Not just the end consumer learning about them, but creatives are learning from each other that how to use something like this in a way collaboratively to increase their business.
How do you think that FashionNXT succeeds in bringing together, because I know that's kind of one of your stated goals, how do you think that FashionNXT succeeds in bringing together the smaller independent people? And talk a little bit about what are some of the goals of FashionNXT now that it's become, according to a lot of New York people even, they compare FashionNXT as one of the very top experiential, and everything is top of the line. So what's your mission in helping these independents?
So there are 3 wings that we have. One is this creating a platform that we call FashionNXT Week in October, 4-day long fashion event for designers to launch their next season's products, just like a good fashion week should be. Or it could be a new technology company, whether they're creating a VR experience or whether they're creating a new wearable technologies or new 3D printing technologies and that are related to consumer fashion. They are showing it as a showcase platform. That's FashionNXT Week in October. Our second part is the talent development wing of our programming. Like we run Up Next, a fashion designers incubator. We have a long track record of like finding new fashion designers and helping them with the year-long support to help to take them to the next level of success as a professional entity. But also we are creating, we have been offering incubators classes and mentorships and all that kind of things for other part of the experiential industry, whether it is the photography or whether it is the styling and whether it is events productions and all of that.
So there's an educational component?
It is an incubator part of it. It is bridging the gap between traditional education that you can get in educational institutions and the real life business opportunities, leveraging our huge production that we create. And these kind of people learn hands-on, as well as we bring in masters in the industry to give them mentorships and all of that. The third part, which is even more exciting, that like we are here for hire for other companies who want to use us for as an agency to one-off productions of their events, hiring us to create campaigns, hiring us to create collaborations between fashion brands and technology brands. You know, like last year we created a world's first 3D printed designers shoe line that is ready to wear for a collaboration between a 3D printed company and a project runway winning fashion designer.
Oh wow! Now, if you are in this business, you have a series of different things that are difficulties, you know, that you have to overcome. I mean, from what I understand, there's 4 different things. There's a lack of ROI on some of the trade shows. There's difficulties in reaching new customers, and then there's the expensive IT tools in terms of like AI and VR that the little guys can't afford. Are some of these educational components, you know, I take it they're addressing like some of these issues. Is that?
So we are, for our incubator classes and the fundamentalships and all of that, we update our 10 sessions that we offer them on the top 10 of the most hottest topics of that current time. Like, for example, recent time, how to utilize social media for reaching the audience directly. That it used to be fashion designers had to, as you said, trade shows. You are spending like $10,000 easy to do these trade shows, right? Mm-hmm. And without knowing how much ROI you are going to get. You know, wholesale model in general is in decline. You know, because that's what you're doing in the trade shows and stuff like this. So now they're wanting to reach audience directly. So technology in different format, show is one of that, but what of the digital space? One of the reasons we create such a high-end fashion show, because all the pictures that are coming out from there, not just the photographers, all the sitting audience can take amazing pictures and become a viral outlet for the designer that are showing, you know, but also classes, mentorships, and those kind of opportunities that we are creating. But not only that, last year we started to do a influencer event few months before the show in May-June timeframe, so that businesses can learn from the influencers how to utilize them, how to collaborate, or how to utilize them to make successful business. So this year we are doing it in late May. So just giving them tools to the extent that is possible.
Let's see. Now you are, from what I understand from some of the other podcasts I've listened to, FashionNXT offers really more of a new model, a turnkey system for people who are involved with it. So you have fantastic production. You have hair and makeup provided. You have hairstylists of the highest level on site. So somebody can come in, and that gives them the opportunity to maybe just do one fantastic showcase, and then you can have more involvement. So talk a little bit about this new model that you have.
If you think about most shows of this caliber, whether it is in New York and other places in the world, where designers are on the hook to deal with each individual and hire each individual entities that are required for putting on the show. For example, they are going to a company to rent the space for a show. Then they are on the hook to find, for a casting director, to find them the models. They are on the hook to find the hair and makeup stylists. They are on the hook to find the technicians like DJs and lighting and all the kind of things. So think about not only just the financial aspect of it, but also the time that they are taking away from their business.
When you go to New York, and you get to see the center of fashion or Milan, what's your takeaway? Do you come back and think, I need to do this, I need to do that, or I mean, from what I understand, what you're putting together is very competitive.
Yeah. So my travel generally has three aspects of it. Number one is, of course, seeing and experiencing what somebody else is doing. That is always inspiring. It's always exciting, because if you are not being inspired by other exciting people's work, other exciting entities' work, you are not having fun. You are just getting into your head a little bit too much. Then, obviously, learning about what other entities are doing, offering to the industry, so that I can customize my programming at the most cutting edge level and better than them level. Or also, when I'm convincing a entity to work with us, whether showing with us or collaborating with us, if I cannot give them a comparative picture that what you are getting from here, what you're getting somewhere else. So that is the second part of it. And the third part of it is like really creating awareness about what we are doing in the bigger markets and bigger places, and more people, like giving interview to their media, talking individually to the industry leaders there, and all of that. Like, for example, like American Fashion Podcast in New York, they interviewed me when I was there during New York Fashion Week, and they really, upon my conversation with them, they came up with a headline of that podcast for us is called Portland. Why Portland?
And which is a great question. Some people, when they come to Portland, they're not, I say this kindly, but they're not going to say come away from Portland thinking that Portland is the most fashionable city that they've been to. Do you think that Portland is a good incubation, city for? Is it difficult? Is Portland a conducive and helpful city to be doing what you're doing in, do you think?
Absolutely. And I think that, like, as I explained in that podcast, to the American Fashion Podcast a couple of months ago, that Portland's history is craft. Portland history, it roots connection to the soil. Portland's history is about being true to your creativity, and be real, not just glossy billboard, glossy TV campaign, or glossy like social media mega influencer and all of that. And world is coming to its terms that, like, what a lot of those things end up creating, and the unfettered consumerism, as well as getting misled by marketing campaigns and all those kind of things. So at the same time, as I was telling you, when you are relying on the stream, you have to take care of the mountain. So in the global scale or the national scale, I feel Portland is that mountain, that here we can be away from this media glare and to work on the innovations.
Yeah, because Portland's, when you look at the United States, it's a little, it's a little isolated, which I think what I'm hearing you say is a good thing, because you can kind of get away
Portland, yeah.
and kind of focus on your individualism, and that there's a good aspect of that. But there's also, one might say that Portland is almost anti-commercial. So when you come to a point where you're trying to make something new, and then you want to sell something new,
Right.
You're in this conundrum of, well, Portland's relatively, it's just not as commercial, overtly commercial as maybe some other cities. So how do you sell stuff?
Correct. And that's very important point that you brought up, and that's what I also again explained in that to that global audience in that podcast, in American Fashion Podcast, that nowadays people are not selling just to the people who are to a certain market, or because of social media, because of online. you can create a content for the media anywhere. You can create an innovation anywhere, and immediately you are promoting it through the social media and other platform all over the world. So you need to go to places where you don't have to show in New York, for example, to get global attention, because it is so saturated by way too many things, way too many marketing events and things like that. Not only you have to spend outrageous amount of money to get through the noise, and also there's not enough media to go around to cover all these things that are going all around. So that's why you see some of these amazing things that are happening in the marketing and communication approach, but not only in FashionNXT, but like South by Southwest, Sundance, and or even Coachella. Those are happening not in the heart of Manhattan.
There's so many different media outlets. You've got terrestrial radio, digital radio. You have blogs and Facebook, and so that's still one of the larger challenges. What is why do you think, this is just a general question, why is fashion important now more than ever to you?
I think fashion has been important to human being from the very onset, because we are the only species who are really wearing something and be able to create it and be able to influence each other about how we look.
Tito, thanks for being on the show. Can you tell us, for your listeners out there, where can they find out more information about FashionNXT, and can they sign up on a newsletter? Do you have to stay in touch with you?
Yeah.
Just tell us a little more about where they can stay in touch.
Obviously, the website is fashionnext.com, which is FashionNXT.com. Our Instagram, Facebook is at FashionNXT. We are very active in all of that, and come follow us. I encourage all these people to follow us, and also our October FashionNXT week that we do.
And what are the dates for that?
October 2, 3, 4, 5.
October 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
okay, and where is that going to be?
That is going to be right on the river next to downtown.
Down the river. Okay, great. Well, Tito, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one.